Well, good afternoon and welcome to another show on Praise Talk Show. We want to thank the Lord for bringing us to this very last day of the month of March. How has your March been? You know, we are working an hour ahead, and by the time we realize we wouldn't, be thinking about it. And then by the time we realize the time will move again. But you know what? It's time to make the best use of the sun. And thank God for what he's going to do in this next quarter of the year. Moving on very swiftly, we've looked at quite a few topics that are relevant to our daily living. And today is just one of those days that, planning towards today's show, thinking about mind matter. And I even, just came across something on, a scheme that NHS is doing, or an initiative that says every mind matters. And yes, we're going to be talking about, mental health. And there's no better person to bring to Praise Talk Show than our able counselor and psychologist and a woman of God that is not new to Praise Talk Show, but I always, value her conversations, value, her input into our lives, and value what she has to say. So please help me welcome Pastor Lydia Khalil one more time to Praise Talk Show.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.
I told you, you are the psychologist for Praise Talk Show. I'm saying it
yes,
again.
I heard
saying it again. I'm not looking for another one. I'm not looking for another counselor. By the way, I'm not looking.
No.
Welcome. How are you doing?
It's the counselor, so we are looking for the Holy Spirit. I'm good.
Amen.
I'm good. Thank you.
And he's just sent you, to manifest himself through you, But yes, as we were speaking, Pastor Lydia, about, looking at mental health challenges, I just realized that, NHS has an initiative that is titled Every Mind Matters, and I was like, wow, well, thank God that we are having this conversation today, because indeed every mind matters. And a lot of people are going through a lot of mental health issues these days. But I have a question for you. First of all, welcome again, and hope you're doing well.
Yes, yes, very well.
Yes, ma'am. Has the mental health challenges increased over this time, over this COVID period, Pastor Lydia?
Um, yes, it has. I think in a way, we hear that the last pandemic was 100 years ago, and um, perhaps then there were not as many laws as they are now. They're not probably, definitely not as many people as they are now, and definitely not as much traveling, and probably even more. The amount of information that is shared. So everybody, I don't think anybody can say they haven't been impacted in this pandemic, whether they were impacted financially, whether they, carried on working, but their capacity was stretched because people were having to homeschool their children. So you could be working, but you now have to, more than ever, especially for women, multitask. The people who don't have families, the single people who imagine in the UK are living in one room, they had to eat, work, and sleep in that room. Um, the older people who couldn't go out, obviously, because they were more vulnerable. And then there were other people or others in the society that we have shielded. I saw an article the other day that somebody had shielded for over a year. And shielding means that you have a health,
Challenge.
let me use the born again, you have a health challenge. So you have maybe dealing with cancer, you have an illness that if you were to get the virus, it could actually cause you to die. So people who were recovering from cancer, who were having cancer treatments, and various other illnesses, you know, blood disorders, all kinds of illnesses, they had to shield, which means that they had to stay indoors. They were not even as free as the rest of us were to go shopping. Now, I use this analogy that it was like we were all in prison, even though we didn't have the bars around us. And we were expected, actually, similar to what happens in prison, allowed an hour out or twice a day. But for the rest of the time, you had to be indoors. Some people were fortunate enough to have terraces or gardens they could go into. But the majority of the people in London, especially, don't have that facility. So you're living in a house that doesn't have an outside space. So you're confined to being, in your room for younger people who could only rent rooms. If you are a family, confined to being in the flat with young children, teenagers. If you are older people, you couldn't leave your house. So technically, or I'm saying all of this to say that there is no way anybody, Christian or not, wouldn't have been impacted, especially your mental health, because we had a way of living that we had never done before. So to your answer, I said all of that. So to go back to your answer, that yes, people would have been impacted and mental health would have increased in this time that we've been in the pandemic. And if you think about all the things that we see on the news, I think initially when news broke, Italy was the country that suffered the most. And we were going into ICUs, we were seeing people literally dying. And that has continued consistently. If you watch a news channel like CNN, they've got on one side of the screen the number of people that have been affected, the number of people that have died, and it stays on that screen for most of the 24 hours in a day. Yeah. So people are being fed a lot of information. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be giving these statistics. I'm not saying we shouldn't be giving the truth, but if you're watching a news channel and you can see these numbers going up consistently for, even if you watch it for 3 hours in a day, it's a lot of, we would say, fear. The images we saw of people dying, the statistics, the idea that, you know, the NHS would be overrun and they would be able to manage. I've heard stories of people in developing nations that oxygen ran out and that was the cause of death, whether it was true or not. So all these kind of things fed us fear, fed us anxiety, made people really fearful to leave their house. I still have clients who don't actually go out for a walk. They're not bothered whether they're masked or not. They just feel something is in the air and they are going to get it.
Wow. Thank you for that breakdown, Professor Lydia. It's interesting that you said people are in fear, but is everybody aware of the effect, you know, of their mental state during this period of time? Some people likely say, I'm depressed, oh, I'm unhappy, oh, this is too much. We likely even before the pandemic, you'd hear people say, oh, I'm depressed, and then you really check, and okay, they're not really depressed. It just felt like, had an off day. It just felt a bit down emotionally, but they'll say they're depressed. But have people become, more aware of their mental state as well? Because during this period of time, I mean, you're a counselor, you meet people, not that we have to go into any of those details of any of your clients, but are people more aware of it?
Because also it's part of what is in the news as well, just like the caption you said. But that caption means that even a child's mind matters. A mother with a lot of children, her mind matters. A single man, his mind matters. An older person, their mind matters, which is saying we need to look after our minds. Now, are we aware? That's a big question. The terminology that you use, the expression is, I think, mainly used by younger people. They're the ones who react probably more emotional. I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed. So it's a language, it's a terminology that is used actually, yes, sometimes wrongly, but it's naming their feelings. They might not be able to name the entirety of what they're feeling, but they're saying, actually, I'm not feeling myself. There's a heightened level. Now, to know that you are impacted mentally means that you have to be aware and accept that your mind matters, if we borrow that terminology. Now, for a lot of people, we believe our physical matters, so I've got a headache, or they've got a headache, or my back hurts. So somebody will actually willingly say, my back hurts, as opposed to actually I feel yes, or I feel a bit anxious today, or I'm not feeling myself, but it's nothing physical. I just feel a bit anxious, or I'm a little worried, or I feel quite a lot of fear. Those are difficult things for people to admit, and I think particularly difficult for Christians to admit, because there's an aspect of us feeling that our mind somehow is taken care of, or the idea that we have to agree that something isn't quite right in our mental area. And that might stem from the fact that we feel that once you are not feeling 100% mentally able, then you are unwell, as in mad or insane, and maybe in some way even possessed, because everything is about the spirit. People have a spirit of depression, people have a spirit of anxiety, people have a spirit of fear. I don't say that those things don't exist, but on a minimal level, where your body and your mind is reacting to something, it is not always spirit based. Yeah. Now, yes, we can go into levels of it where it becomes a spirit, but the initial may just be your body saying, or your mind saying, it's overloaded. It's overloaded with information that is not right. It's in, the Bible says, whatever things are good, whatever things are pure. So I might have, let's imagine that somebody's lost their job. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the bills are coming. It's April 1st now. Council tax is starting all over again. I couldn't even manage to pay my bills last month. And now I'm getting an added 150 pounds, whatever it is that you pay for council tax. Now that's going to heighten my anxiety. Yeah, this is something natural that is happening to me. It's not a spirit thing. So if the person rings somebody else and says, I'm really feeling anxious because I don't know how I'm going to manage paying for this month. I'm feeling fearful. It's not a spiritual thing. It is their body reacting and their mind reacting to a circumstance, which can be managed either by engaging with the authorities, maybe, having somebody help you pay it. Something like that can be managed. Now, let's say 6 months down the line, the bailiff is calling. Yeah, they've taken you to court. Now, imagine the anxiety that person is going to be feeling now. The gas bill has piled up. The letters are read. You're being threatened. You're afraid to open your front door. Now, imagine the heightened levels of fear or anxiety they're feeling, which, if they don't find a job, can spiral now to depression. But I think there's a disconnect for most people to acknowledge those feelings along the way. So which has been, I guess, happening, and people haven't acknowledged that the fact that we've been locked in for so long, the fact that we're living with the probability of getting a virus that actually that can kill people. But the number of people who recover from corona far exceeds the number of people that die. But the number of people that die
have been amplified.
It's speaking louder than the number of people that have suffered. So it's either people are afraid to leave their houses. That even if they're bold and they're leaving, there's a level of anxiety that they're carrying, even when they're out doing their normal shopping, when they take their children out. I know people who spray everything. They spray door handles, they spray their hands repeatedly, they use tissues to open doors. Those are displays that they're almost what we call hyper alert. So they're now looking for the virus. They feel they can do something to minimize them getting it.
Wow. Okay. You're saying it's almost, when we see the reaction of our children when we cough and when we sneeze, and that's just a typical example of what you're saying. It might be humor, but it's really serious, because it's like an automatic reaction, with their response, and it's like they don't think about it, they just do it. Where we adults don't, but then does that reflect on what we might be thinking? But they just take it lightly and just do it, But is there a safe way to then bring that to our consciousness? I'm aware that yes, we as Christians, we do have a language of faith. That we're encouraged, we're empowered to speak, and that becomes a reality when you do believe in it. But is there a safe way to identify the mental state of one? Is there a safe way for me to identify that, okay, this is where I am, this is how I'm feeling, but it doesn't make it the end of the situation?
Okay. All right. Let's go back to actually that sneezing or the coughing. let's say last year, even February, if I had gone to Tesco, Sainsbury's, and I sneezed next to somebody, their automatic response, whether they were Christian or not, would be, "Bless you." Yes. Uh-huh. And that came from the flu virus, where the time of the pandemic of the flu, and that was when that "God bless you," meaning God will protect you from getting um, the bubonic plague at that time of the pandemic. Now,
Okay, so that was a prayer.
That where
That
it was
was
a
a
prayer.
prayer
Okay,
that
yes,
you would not be
God will.
afflicted. You will
Yes,
not be
yes,
affected.
yes. Because one
Okay,
of the
that was a
signs,
prayer. Right, thank
yes.
you.
So at one of the signs at the time, just like with COVID, is a sneeze. Now, if you sneezed in a public place and even in your house, everybody around you would jump. There would be no,
There's no "bless you." This is run away from you.
there's no blessing, just run away. And then, of course, you make the mistake of coughing. You are
It's
done
almost
for.
like you're your own. I'm out.
Yes, you are done for. So that, I think, it's a typical way to show the difference between how we were in February last year compared to how we are now. And I think that is across board, whether non-Christians or Christians. If people sneeze next to us before, we would just hope that they covered their mouth. We would give them tissue. We would ask if they were coughing more than 2 or 3 seconds. We would ask them, "Are they okay? Would you like a glass of water?" I don't think anybody would react that way anymore. They would just like extend something to you and say, "You know what? You stay there. Are you feeling okay? I'll get you something." But we're almost treating ourselves in a inhumane way, leaving the caring and now going into a place of really rejecting the person and not even checking in. The first reaction you get is the person wants to save themselves, firstly. And then the next thing they say, "Oh, maybe it's Corona." So they give you already something. And then they run literally away from you. They're like blocking you, blocking the sneeze, or they literally step away from you, because now they're saying you're no longer safe because you sneezed or you coughed. Yeah. So going back to how does somebody identify that they're not feeling themselves? Is that what you were
Yes. How can they identify that? Okay, I think I am. There is, I mean, not even the mental illness side of it, but there's something that is not, I'm being affected mentally.
Okay, so let's look at it as in every day. One thing about, I think, when people come to counseling, they become self-aware. Yeah, they sort of look at themselves intrinsically, and they can identify the things that they do. Then they identify why they do them. So, say for somebody who is maybe quick-tempered, yeah, they can then identify where that thing really comes from. Okay, so for people to sort of check in, that's what we call it. So if I was having a group meeting now, I would say, give everybody a few minutes, and then I'll ask them to check in. How are you? And it won't be that I'm fine. It will be a proper, them taking some time to actually feel themselves, which I think is what we don't do a lot. We don't feel ourselves. We don't check in with ourselves as to how am I doing. So when I'm asking you, how are you doing, Pastor Praise? Yeah, I'm expecting you to pause and say, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm great. Actually, I'm not feeling good today. So if somebody says, I'm not feeling good today, I would ask, oh, what's wrong? And they might respond, oh, I didn't sleep well, for example. My back hurts. I've got a slight headache. One way people use to express emotion, they would say, I'm out of sorts. So sorts meaning I'm not quite sure how I feel emotionally. I feel disconnected. I feel a little bit heavy. I feel a little bit sad. I didn't sort of get up with the usual zeal that I normally get up with. Yeah. So they may have a little bit of heaviness. Or they may have to do something that's quite big. Yesterday, I had to get up and fill a form. And I woke up feeling anxious about it because it had to be done yesterday. I did it, and I spent the whole day carrying a level of anxiety because I wanted an acknowledgement back that that form had been received on the other side. So if somebody were to ask me when I woke up in the morning, how are you? I would say, actually, I'm feeling a little anxious. If they ask me why, I say, I have to do this form and the deadline is on Wednesday. Yeah, I've had the whole month to do it. I didn't do it. So after I did it, so I'm feeling two levels because I have to fill the form. I have to answer some questions. I wasn't sure about how the questions would be. I did it. Then I carried on. But at the back of my mind, I was thinking, I need to get an acknowledgement. I need to get a receipt for that. When I got the acknowledgement, I put it away because I knew it had been received. I'd gotten it back. I was a little bit anxious because I need to hear yes or no. So when I woke up this morning, I remembered it again and I thought, oh, I wonder if they're going to respond to me today again to tell me yes or no. Does that help you? So it's about checking in with yourself and then identifying actually what it is that I'm worried about. So I could have spent the whole day reacting to everybody because I was feeling anxious and I didn't know what I was feeling anxious about. Yeah. So I would get up, somebody would say good morning, and I would just grunt because I'm thinking, what's good about today? Yeah. And then if they said, oh, do you want some tea? Why would I want some tea? I have a lot to do today. You are disturbing me with this tea that you want me to drink. Or somebody comes and says, oh, can I make breakfast? For example, which is a normal morning chore. And then, do I always have to do all of these things in this house? Why must I be the one to make breakfast? I told everybody yesterday that I was busy. It's Monday morning. Why would you want me to do that? But it's all stemmed from me knowing that I have to do this form and the form has to be in today. That's what I'm saying makes sense. And then when I've done it, one level goes. Then I'm waiting for the response. When I get the response, the acknowledgement, another level goes. And then I can settle into my day. So it's about people checking in themselves and being aware of what they have on their minds, because the mind doesn't really go, the body goes to sleep and then the mind goes to sleep. But if we have something going on, the mind will not go to sleep. Hence people saying, I didn't sleep well. So the mind will still be going on because it's responding to the anxiety that we're carrying. So that's why people take medication to sleep, because that will dumb out all the bodily reactions that will cause them to stay awake. That's why people drink, to numb some of the anxiety, some of the pain they're feeling, some of the fear they're feeling. That's why people would say, I need a stiff drink before I go on stage, for example, because that helps them calm the anxiety they're feeling. I feel like I'm talking a lot today.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. And thank you for that, because I'm listening. So I was asking, like, a safe way for me to identify, which means you said something which is so important that I don't think many of us do. When you ask the question, how are you? In fact, if somebody was to pause, then we ask, are you okay? So
Yeah.
I'm really thinking about what does actually happen. We were talking about communication yesterday, how most times the answer is we already have the answers in our minds without really listening to what the other person is saying. So it just took me back to that thought when you're saying, when people say, how are you? We know the automatic thing, I'm fine, I'm doing great, thank you. How are you? But there's no pause to think, how am I? And I think another thing, people don't then think that, am I in a safe environment? Is this person, am I confident in this person to be able to respond to them, to say, well, actually, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like that. So I think those are factors that affect our response. But then I guess you would then say, then find someone that you can then speak to, isn't it? To say, okay, I was asked a question this morning, then it actually dawned on me that I wasn't, where I needed to be. So, I'm reaching out to you to speak to you. Would you recommend that, obviously, I suppose?
Yes, and I think what we forget, that a lot of this self-awareness is not necessarily for outside consumption. Does that make sense? So if I'm checking in with myself in the morning, I'm checking in with me so I can be in good temperance. I can have good temperance, I can have self-control for my day. Yes. So the same way, if somebody wakes up and they've got a headache or backache, what they might do is do some stretches. Yeah. What they might do, if the stretches don't work, or drink some water, or if they maybe have herbal teas or whatever they use for their muscles. Now, if that doesn't work, they might reach for the pain reliever. What they're doing is looking after themselves for the rest of the day. So they're not in pain for the next 12 hours that they need to function, where they can't have the luxury of having to lie down some more. Now, so when I do check in with myself, it's for me to identify how I am feeling. Now, what do I do to look after me? Because if I didn't fill out that form, I would still be carrying the anxiety. Say I couldn't do it till in the afternoon. I would know, okay, this is why I'm feeling anxious. When it gets done, I'm going to feel better. So it's not necessarily all the time. We call it being robust and being resilient. So you are looking inward, you're identifying what it is that is wrong, and then you are doing it, are taking care of it. So when we say take care of your mental health, this is what we mean. Now, if I find, I think somebody asked me a question in the evening yesterday, and they asked me, how am I? I said, I'm okay. Because at that point, I was just okay. I was tired from work. I was like feeling like I needed to be somewhere else, not where I was. And I wasn't feeling okay. Maybe 2 or 3 hours later, but that was a safe person for me to say that. If it was somebody that I didn't feel safe, I may respond the normal way. I'm well, I'm fine. Yeah. So now,
so can I just ask you that, when you said I'm okay, did the person said, what does that mean?
Yeah, because the person knows me enough. Okay is what we say usually when we're just on a
borderline.
Yes, borderline. I could go left, or I could stay okay, or I just actually need an encouragement, or I just need somebody to, maybe boost me a little bit, and then for me to say, you know what, I'm tired, I want to be somewhere else. And then the person says, oh, don't worry, you're where you are for a reason, it'll all work out, you're doing good. And then I feel okay. Not feel okay, I feel better than when I start feeling okay. So first of all, we are checking in, as I said, so that we can manage our own mental health. We can take care of our own mental health. Because when we name what the problem is, then we can find a way of measuring it. Most people come to me when they can no longer manage it. It's not all too much. Or they don't need people around them to give an opinion. They want to find the answer to what they're looking for inside themselves. So yes, if you have somebody who's safe, and you can go to that person, of course, go to that person. I guess I was talking about just managing it yourself. And then, of course, if that person or the people around you can't manage it, then, of course, you need to seek counsel either from somebody you feel is spiritual or from, a mental health professional. But what can we do? One, to identify. Two, to manage and look after ourselves. I'm talking it on a very simple, basic level. So somebody who's been in lockdown for a while, they're doing the same thing, cleaning the house, feeding the children, going back to back on Zoom. Yesterday, I sent an invoice like twice, and dates were wrong. And it's because I'd been on the screen for hours and I wasn't seeing the twos and the threes as clearly as I would have seen them. Now, what do I do at that point? What ideally I should do is switch it all off and go out for a walk. Just to do something different. I say to people, go to the kitchen, make some tea, put some music on and dance. If you've got children, if you've got a partner, if it's just you, just dance or listen to something that will lift your mood. So on basic levels, yes, those are ways of managing it. Now, if it's something that you feel is unmanageable and you need to share it with somebody, then find somebody who you feel safe enough to do that with.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And while you're speaking, well, for people who are living on their own, they might not be able to do this, but I guess they can, because if they, I'm sure, there might be a possibility for them to reach out to someone, or maybe somebody would have called them that they do feel safe with. But, the question that just came to my mind is, how conscious are we of the mental state of those that are around us, especially, their families, when we say the good morning and the good afternoon, and the good nights? How do we listen? Somebody says good morning and you say good morning, but that does not really give you a signal as to where they are that time of the day. But what's coming to mind is that it's almost like we all have to, every mind matters, which means that we have to mind the minds, or be concerned about the minds of those that are around us, especially in our, I'll use the word family circle. It might not be biologically, related to someone, but even if you have flatmates at home, we can be at work, in our circles. What I'm hearing is that we must be, concerned about the next person's mental state. Not as in being a counselor, but just that support. You ask, how are you? The person needs to listen to the response, to pick up or wait to hear, no, how are you? Do you understand? Because it really would help and go a long way, so that we don't get to, a state where it becomes, I mean, it could have been managed. Let me just say, like, maybe, some of those things could have really, been managed. We're talking about mind matters. So how can we then, try to maintain a healthy mind state?
Okay. I think first of all, this is something that we're all in it together. Yeah. Now, what you are saying is, how can I check on my husband? How can I check on my children? How can I check on my sister? How can I check on my friend? And I think because we've gotten into this habit of, we're all either all of it in the same. How do I ask my husband, who I'm seeing all day, every day, how he is? I know how his day is. Yeah. And how can I, even the children seem to be having fun. They haven't gone to school for weeks. They're not doing morning run. And then we are making assumptions that everybody's okay because from what we see, they seem to be okay. Yeah. So ideally, ideally, there should be a 5 minute for everybody. So a wife says to her husband, how was your day? Even though I've seen him all day. Yeah. Even though we've been scrambling for computer space, I've heard him having his meetings. He's gone and locked himself in the room. But that 5 minutes is for him to check in. The same thing in the morning. The same way I can call each child in the kitchen when we're making toast. So how are you? How was your day? How have you been feeling? I know I haven't even really checked in about this COVID thing. You know, how's it been feeling for you? Not going to school, not seeing your friends, not being able to go to church where you have, church family, older people, taking the time to check in on them, taking the time to maybe drop something for them. It could even be like tulips are probably out now for like £1, daffodils or whatever, and just say, oh, I left something outside your door. I was just checking up on you. I wanted to check in, or to just call an older person that you know, or stop in their house and take some cake and say, I just wanted to find out how you were doing. Because I think those are the things that help us if we're going on the theme of communicating. I remember when I used to work, I used to really stop at people's desks and ask them how they are, do it religiously for some time before they started to trust that I was really interested in how they were. And then they would start to share things that were going on for them. And that's a wonderful way to minister the Lord. Because when people, and it was regardless of whether they were black, white, Asian, they were just people that I said, hi, what was going on? And then it's a nice way to introduce God. It's a nice way to, when you check in on them, after a while, they'll begin to share some of their life with you. And you begin to rub them off and say, I have similar struggles, but I manage it with, this is my religion. This is what has helped me. But I think we go first with this, give your life to Christ way of introducing people. But that's how that's one of the ways I introduce Christ. So it's about checking in now to your neighbor. The Bible says to love your neighbor as yourself. So that neighbor is my husband, that neighbor is my child, that neighbor is my sister, that neighbor is my friend, that neighbor is my brother, that neighbor is the grumpy neighbor next door who we fight over car space for. Is that woman actually in the grocery store or where she's at the checkout and she's been there? Those people have worked the whole time. Do we stop to ask the person who is at the checkout, how are you? How is your family managing? Because they're exposed more than most of us. They're sitting there hour after hour in the cold. The winter was really bad and they were there. Do you say, hello, what's your name? If you can see their name tag, my name is Lydia. How are you? Those are the ways that I think we can help actually lift people's spirits. And we can also check in with our families. We can find out how they're doing. If they're not doing great, what can we do to help? What will make you feel better? Do you want me to make your favorite meal? Do you want me to make a cup of tea? Do you want to go out for a walk? Just me and that child, not the whole family. I'm not saying take all the children, but spend time with that child in particular that wasn't feeling too great. Perhaps they like ice cream. Okay, we're going to buy ice cream just to make John feel better today. tomorrow it might be Sarah's turn, and then we'll do something special for Sarah. Or it might be Mom's turn, and and then they would learn also to check in. Mom, how are you today? How is Auntie today? How is Dad today? They would then learn how to check in for other people as well. And they would then learn to name the feelings they're feeling. Does that make sense? So I would imagine, I'm just stereotyping me, a Christian mother goes in and says to a child, how are you feeling? And the child says, oh, I feel a bit anxious because, I have to go to school and it's Corona. And you have not been given a spirit of fear, but of love and a sound mind. Yeah. So the child gets muffled. Yeah. So when the child is having a real issue, a real fear, they cannot come back again to share it. Because the slightest fear was dismissed. So it's about how do we let people name their feelings. Yes, we can coax them. Yes, we can pray. Yes, we can encourage them. But they are given the permission to say, this is how I am feeling. If somebody was unwell physically, you would say to them, describe the pain, would you not? You would say, tell me how you're feeling. Is it your leg? Does it hurt? Is it really painful? Is it a piercing pain? Is it a dull pain? Is it just the muscle? You will get them to describe the feeling to you. So the same way we would get people to describe how they're feeling. And I think our vocabulary isn't developed for people to say. That's hence we hear the words of stressed, anxious, and depressed, because those are the only named feelings that we all know, because we're not encouraged to use words, to describe how we're feeling. Now I'm really talking a lot today.
No, I mean, you're really speaking. I believe you're speaking not just to myself, but you're speaking to, families out there. And if you're listening to this conversation this afternoon, we all need to stop, listen, and we all need to check in, and we all need to have that 5 minutes. These are family rules that we should put down to ensure that everyone is looked after, and we are be able to extend care. This is really care. I was listening to what you said earlier, and with the response of when people sneeze now, when people cough, what happens now? And I believe it's because what has been recommended by the government is the isolation. Just put them in isolation, and then care for them in isolation. Then if they're able to make it, they make it. If they don't, then they don't. But then, so that really takes away the care factor, which might also have affected the way we do respond to people. I'm not blaming it on that, but it doesn't really help when, isolation is the first thing that is being promoted. When people need people, we all need each other. But we're talking about mind matter today, and every mind matters. And in order for us to be conscious of the mental state of our family members or those around us, we must be able to stop and listen, or give them time to do the checking in, so that they can respond in a very as much as they can, in a comfortable way. But I believe that we also have to create that safe space, for them to be able to speak to us and not feel that we don't understand, and not feel that, we're going to shut them down, and not feel that, do you understand? It's always the same. You don't listen anyway. You just ask the question. There's so many factors that affect all of us, and it's so important that we all just also, I think we all need to just do some checking in. Am I really showing care at home? And, as a parent, I'm just thinking, yes, you ensure that your children have, they have a meal. I mean, I do ask them how their days, and we do have conversations. I remember the other day, parents was quite surprised. He actually said, he was listening to question. I said, I didn't know you guys speak like that. Both of us looked at him like, what do you mean? But it's something that we all have to, embed. And whether or not I'm listening enough now, I have to ask, because of these conversations are a reminder, am I listening enough? And also, as sisters, as brothers, as friends, we have to ask that question, are we listening enough? I find out people tend to see such conversations as a waste of time these days, Pastor Lydia. I don't know why. When you create this, there's a rest hour by God's grace that I've been running now, is going 2 months, where just an hour on a Thursday. So if you're listening to me and tomorrow, you want to be part of that rest hour, just inbox me, send me a message, and I'll send the link to you. It's just an hour where women come and I ask the question, how are you? Or where are you? Or what's happening? And sometimes some people have come and have not come back because they feel like, I guess they feel like, what's that conversation about? Sister asked me, how am I? So that's why I need to pray. I need you to preach at me. I need to tell me. But how important is that, these conversations? Because I don't think people understand, that we need this. I'm even feeling rest, and we're talking, and I just feel this awe of ease that we need it. Please speak into that for me, please, Pastor Lydia.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think maybe also I should clarify, because you've used your son as an example. Men may need a little bit more patience, because the usual, I'm stereotyping here now, depending on the trust that he has with his wife, or the brother has with his sister, or even brothers to brothers. We women tend to be easier to unburden ourselves and say, what, I'm stressed. It can't even just be about hair or the eyebrows, didn't come out right. And it's an issue for us. But for the men, men tend to gather in clusters, but they don't actually really share emotions. Yeah,
that's true.
So with men, the woman might ask the first day, and he's like, what do you mean, what's happened to my day? Am I not here? Do I not look okay to you? But it might take time, just as it would also with a brother or a son. They take a little before they might start to engage with this checking in that I was talking about. So we have to remember, and we have to remember that sometimes, if we really care, we will keep going back to ask. Now, in terms of what you were talking about, that people might see actually talking as a waste of time. Yeah, I get it quite often. People ask me, do people actually come and sit down, talk to you about their problems? Like, how long do they come from? Like, what are they really like, is this really for real? And I think initially I used to almost want to defend my position, but now I just say yes and I laugh, and then they come and say, really, is it for sure? So now I actually I don't engage in those conversations, because I found that they were not very useful, and some of it are just insightful. Now, when people are not willing to engage about speaking, and they're expecting it to either be just always prayer, it may mean that actually, just like you've said, there is no time that they rest. Their life is so consumed by whatever is going on that there is no time actually for them to check in. So it's a sign to me that they haven't looked and had a reflective time. Now, we all have busy lives. Yeah. but there must be a time where you have to have a way that you distress. So one might be unburdening, sharing that burden with somebody that you care for. It might be in a group because that group will give you support, like what you are talking about. It might be reading. It might be watching a movie. For some women, it's getting their hair done. For some, it might be getting their nails done. For some, which I'm going to say, which is sometimes unbelievable to Christians, things like having a massage. They now go into levels like, is the person a Christian, not a Christian thinking? So it's about at the
Okay,
end of the
okay,
day, it's about
it's okay to do it, by the way. And
So
if you don't want anyone to touch your hands, just sit on the chair and get it done.
yes, yes. So what I think you are talking about at the end of the day is self-care. Do I need that self-care in a support group, in a support bubble, which is what you're doing? But what is my self-care? How do I look after me? How do I look after me? Do I eat well, for example? Do I eat well? Do I take vitamins? Do I exercise? Now, some people will tell you, I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to eat well. I don't take vitamins. I don't drink any herbal teas. I don't maybe even look after my hair, my nails, my skin. I don't have conversation. I don't have time to do this. They have time. They don't have time to do anything. I don't read. I don't travel. I don't watch a movie on TV. But really, even if they're saying they want to pray, that may mean that they don't pray, they may not even have a good enough prayer life. Because if you have a good enough prayer life, all of these things must be part of our wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there must be time for you to look after you. And it might be in that support bubble that you've created.
Wow.
So it's a sign of looking after me. Looking after me might mean going to my room and lying down for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I do it in between sessions because I need to get myself back up for the next lot of clients. That's looking after me. That 1 hour, I could have spent it doing my washing, cooking, phoning somebody. But I've decided that if I'm going to work a full day, listening to people, I need to take a chunk of time to lie down. That lying down means getting undressed, switching off the lights, switching off my phone, and having a moment out. So it's about it might be how do you take care of yourself? And if you're not taking care of yourself, then something is not. It's not that something is wrong, but it's something that you need to look at. Yeah, you will find. I think women are probably more challenged by that than men. You would see them ways that men zone out. They would get their newspapers. They would, if they have community of men, they would say, "Oh, I'm going out with my friends." Yeah. If they drink, they would sit down and say, "I'm having my glass of wine or my bottle of beer," and nobody knows to disturb. Everybody knows not to disturb them in that time, because he's having his me time. He's reading his newspapers, he's drinking, he's sitting in his chair. That's why you have things like daddy's chair. Men seem to have to given themselves permission to do that, but women struggle a little bit more because we feel we have to be busy. You have to be busy to be productive. But is it always useful busy or just busy?
Indeed. It's been a very useful conversation this afternoon, Pastor Lydia. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks to everyone that is tuned in today. Your mind matters, and it does matter to God. It does matter to all of us. And what we do to care for our mind is, is very important. Maybe you have not stopped to do a check-in. Maybe you have not stopped to take a 5 minutes, or maybe, it's not something that you practice at home or within your circle. But, at this moment in time, I just want to encourage you. There's always a first time for everything. And then we all learn every day. So do check out, as often as you can, just to check it to see where you are. And also take that 5 minutes off, because your mind does matter. Once our minds are in place, we would be ready to do a whole lot more than we're doing now. Bible talks about the renewal of our mind. So God really he's concerned about your mind. Keep it healthy as best as you can. And if you do need support, and we didn't even talk about Pastor Lydia's counseling service, which is Serene counseling.org. So you can check her out online, and she'll be willing to give you any extra support that you need. But don't wait till it gets to that place. Check in with your family members, check in with your friends, check in that they are, to see how they're doing. And as we do that, I believe that we would have a better, state of mind to handle life's challenges that are external. Until I come back your way, stay blessed, stay on top, and don't forget to check in. Love you, and bye for now.